about fatherhood. Everybody involved in this movie have been dads and been doing that for a long time, and it means a lot to us. And we were probably all raised by a generation of fathers. My father was quite affectionate. He was kind and loving, and he is these things, and he was stern where he needed to be. But my dad I never wanted to know if he loved me. And so I came from a really, really blessed childhood. But I know there are some fathers who really struggle to externalize their emotions or ask for help, and so ultimately we wanted to make a movie that spoke to families. Everybody is a son, a brother, a daughter, a mother. You're one of those things, and we felt like that's a universal message. This is a story of family, primarily told through the eyes of a daughter and a father. And ultimately, if people walk away with anything, it's that they feel like they can open their hearts a bit more to the experience of this family. And hopefully that I don't need them to change. I just want them to experience something, and who knows where that'll lead, Finding that line between letting a person just exist in a feeling rather than letting a person try to tell a story with their feelings. And I think that's something we really strived for, was we're going to build context around this road trip, and you're going to pick up clues. But we're never going to try and tell story with the performance. We're just going to let them feel how they feel in that moment, and hopefully it's raw, and hopefully it resonates, and hopefully it takes you on a journey. This cast, we found these kids, Molly Bell Wright and Wyatt Solis, through our great casting directors out of Los Angeles, Mormon Balling Casting, and Molly had just come from Australia with her family to LA. She's British, and she came in and did this American accent and blew me away in her audition. It was one of those things where, like, the second I saw her audition, I knew that we could make the movie. We had kind of John Magaro circling and was working out his deal, which wasn't hard. John was great. He wanted to do this movie from the jump. And then, of course, Wyatt just had never done a movie before. I mean, I think he had been on camera once or twice, but like to the extent of doing an actual movie, had never done anything. And he was 6 when we cast him, and was 6 the whole time when we shot with him. And that was, something that was really important to me to cast. This whole movie is built off the backs of 3 people. One is a father who comes with like all the weight of parenting. One is a girl who's coming of age and understanding that she's starting to understand the nuance between a careless life and a fraught life. And the latter is Wyatt, who is a resilient 6-year-old who cannot help but always feel protected because he relies on his parent and his father. So those 3 things had to be very distinct and very different for me, in my opinion, to have a film that kind of gave you the ride that Omaha is. And so casting a Wyatt, a 6-year-old, then finding this incredible actress who played to her age. She was cast as a 9-year-old to play a 9-year-old. But Molly Bell Wright is going to have a beautiful long career if she wants one. This is what I would love to say is her coming out party. And then getting John. I knew this father goes through a story journey that is riding a very thin line between loving and hating, and being angry and feeling sorry for or having empathy for. And, John has a career of turning in performances where he threads that line. He is, for me, the embodiment of a real person who turned into an actor. And I don't ever feel like he's forcing it, and I don't ever feel like he's putting on a persona, and he's just that every man who I love on camera. And so people were worried when they read the script about who are you going to cast the dad, because like it could go south, you know, and I never felt that way. I just felt very confident that my job for that role was done the second I cast the right person. And so when John signed on, I was like, I remember thinking, I can't screw this up. It's going to be me that screws this up. If anybody screws this up, because now I have this cast, and getting it in there, and then spending time editing. You know, sometimes on set, you're shooting the most important scene of the day. And you get in the edit, and then you realize you've shot the most important scene in every scene. And you start to realize you're just banging a drum every scene. And that's just my inexperience in my first movie, you know. I learned that pulling back and holding back and letting the film be a symphony rather than a charge.
How do you know how to fly kites? Mom taught me before she got sick.
The film feels very big because of the landscape, because the way that you open it up to the backdrop, it would like whatever is happening out there, the beautiful landscape.
Yeah.
So if you can talk about that, like it's almost like a spectacle looking at all those like landscapes that are around, but also the story, which is so small in a way, and so intimate.
Well, part of that comes from the practical use of us knowing that we wanted to shoot this on real process trailers, meaning that if the car is moving, the camera is there, the crew is on the thing, we're interacting with light as it really comes to us. You know, the way that they used to make movies. And you know, if this was a big movie, we probably would have had shot on the volume and had all these luxuries, and it would have been great. But you know, I think we would have also lost some of what you're talking about, and that is that. So you're constricted within the rounds of where can you put the camera on a process trailer, on a moving vehicle? Are you know, would I ever come off of a boom and come in through the window and, you know, whatever. So for us, it was like, okay, we knew early on that this movie was going to be a reaction to the performance of Wyatt, and that he would be the tip of the spear of most of our creative decisions. Why? Because a 6-year-old can't hit a mark. He doesn't do anything the same. His lines are always different every take. When he's in a seatbelt sitting in the back, I can plan a shot. But other than that, it's really chaotic. And so we said, you know, we looked at a lot of photography that was, you know, like Alex Sloth and all their names are blanking me. I go back to my books and see, but a lot of like road journey photography, folks who just shot all across the American West. And something that struck me with that was the complexity within the simple. And so we decided that everything we were going to shoot within that car was going to be, you know, frame within a frame, slightly layering through windshields, blah, blah, blah. But essentially it was going to be anchored to the experience of those dialogues and things like that. But that every time we stepped out of that, it needed to feel like a relief. Like we could breathe and we could see the alfalfa, we could feel the heat on the road. And we felt the experience of a road trip, much like a kid does, where it's expansive and it's larger than life. I mean, I was very adamant that there would be no drone shots in the movie. And as one does, you get into post and you're shooting second unit and it's like, are you sure you don't want a drone? And so we shot a day of DJI stuff, and eventually one shot did make it in the movie. And I think it's an important shot, if you will, because we're looking straight down at the car. We don't see off into a horizon. It's not lowering and booming down to like the settling of the end of that chapter. It's simply like an ISO shot tracking high above this vehicle against this barren earth, and you know, in many ways a metaphor for like what's happening with this family and the world around them, and it's you know, it's in the West, it's all desert, you know what I mean? So that was important to me. And then we kind of moved past that when they arrive in Nebraska, and essentially almost everything outside the car I wanted to have be handheld and move with them and let them feel the freedom of like, we're not in the car anymore. So lots of decisions. we had big aspirations for moving and doing more camera stuff, and then Wyatt showed up, and we were like, oh, okay, he's directing the movie.
So just like in terms of vision and execution, now that the film is is completed and it's already being shown and all that, how do you feel?
I feel that's a good question, because I think day 5 of the movie, I was quite frustrated, not with my cast or even the circumstance. It was simply that it's my first movie. I've dreamt of this movie, not particularly this script, but of this movie for 20 years. And you fill your quiver of arrows and you think, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I want to do this and I want to do that. And then I realized that what this movie needs was exactly what we did. In my opinion, I feel like you could have made this movie all on Steadicam. You could have done it on gimbals. It could have been one single shot, though that would have been weird. I'm very happy with the way the execution is today, because that's just what I love. I love classic cinema, I love traditional filmmaking, and I love actors. And the greatest compliment for me is when people talk about the performances. And it's not that I want to take credit of them, I just am proud of them. And I think it's a combination of our visual choices that really make that performance excel. It's knowing where to put that camera to catch that right look, and I think Paul Myers, who my cinematographer was and who I've worked with for years in commercials, this is a person who gave so much to this movie. Paul Myers will storm any hill with anybody if he believes in the project. And he was chased off properties with someone with a shotgun. Werner Herzog would be so proud of him. When he was shooting second unit stuff. Bless his heart, he didn't get hurt, but so it's just building that team, and yeah, I'm really happy with the execution.